Good morning and welcome to LLT 121 Classical Mythology. When last we left off, we were talking about the Cretans, or at least I was talking about the Cretans. The Cretans are people who live on the island of Crete. I told you about how King Minos and Queen Pasiphae already had two lovely daughters, Ariadne and Phaedra. Phaedra being the tragic Mrs. Theseus, who dies right in the middle of that award-winning play, Hippolytus. I told you about how Pasiphae and Minos were sitting by the seaside and prayed to Poseidon to send them this big, beautiful bull that they could sacrifice. Do you remember that? Do you recall also that when Poseidon sent the bull, they refused to sacrifice the bull? You'll recall Poseidon got very angry and decided to make Pasiphae fall in love with that bull. Did you remember that? Okay, I'm just checking. I mean, the women in this family really have it tough. I mean, her daughter Phaedra was eventually going to fall in love with Hippolytus and die. Ariadne's life was no picnic either. And their mom, fell in love with a bull. At first, she tried coming onto the bull by just walking up and saying moo. That did not help. Her next recourse was to having this fellow by the name of Daedalus construct a wonderful wooden cow. Phaedra climbed into the wood. No, she didn't. Pasiphae climbed into the wooden cow, made the appropriate mooing noises. The love deed took place, and in 9 months, Pasiphae became the mother of a healthy, happy baby Minotaur. He was very cute when he was little. I would guess, God bless you. But eventually they hid him in this thing called the Labyrinth. If ever you visit the beautiful third floor of Craig Hall, for the first time you will notice that all of the hallways look exactly alike. One corridor is the mirror image of another. The first tendency is to get lost. Okay? That's understandable. I think that's why they painted the halls all the same color. And it is often referred to as a labyrinth, which is proverbial for a confusing place that you can't get out of or find anything in. If you'll recall, at the beginning of class, at the beginning of this semester, I spoke about the Cretan civilization, the so-called Minoan Civilization. You remember that? Of course you do. Was very advanced. It was centered on the award-winning city of Knossos. They had this wonderful 4-story palace that archaeologists have excavated. Amongst the ruins, they find these beautiful statues. They find things like running water. They had indoor plumbing in 1600 BC. Put yourself in the mindset of, say, an ancient Athenian visitor to Crete, okay? This is maybe 1600 BC. You live in a dirt hut. You probably live to be about 25. You never leave within a mile radius of the little hut where you were born. Okay? You eat whatever grows, probably olives and water. You're lucky if you get to eat meat 3 or 4 times in your life, so on and so forth. If you're ill, some god has possessed you. And all of a sudden you are transported to Craig Hall. What sort of things do you go back and report, Regina, to your ancient Greek friends. Regina's back from this mystical land called Craig Hall. It all looks the same, easy to get in, tough to get out of. What else do you notice? What other weird things do you notice about the people and things there?
Strange people walking around with things on their backs.
Pardon?
Strange people walking around with things on their backs.
Okay, strange people walking around with things on their backs. Greer, what do they notice? Pardon? Tell me about what the people look like. Some of them wear strange hats on their heads with emblems. What about the room where they all stand? What about these things up here, Jeremy? Yeah, it's not sunlight, but there are 8 little suns in the top there. What else do you notice?
Colors.
Yeah, different weird colors that you didn't even know existed. What else do you try to tell the people about when you come back to ancient Athens, Farrellyn?
Some of the walls look different textures.
Bizarre different textures. What else do we have here? Crystal, you usually have something interesting to say.
Little boxes that have people.
There you go. There are these little boxes. When you turn them on, this weird high-pitched sound fills the room. And green letters appear. Okay, how do you get up to this strange place? There's a box with a door that goes open and down. It moves up and moves down. Now you're getting into the spirit of things. There is a person sitting in the back who has a bubble come forth from her mouth and then returns. This person must be a goddess. And then there is a man in the back with a strange device that swivels back and forth. Okay, what other weird things do you notice? Now what happens when you hit this little switch? The little suns go out, and then they come back on. That person standing up in the front must be very powerful. Notice the rapt attention that everybody pays to him. When he walks to this side of the room, the man with the thingy on the pivot points it at him, and all the students look. And when he walks over to this side of the room, everybody looks at him and the camera pivots. There is only one thing more important than the guy in the room. There's the clock, which isn't there anymore. The goddess clock. We could theorize that the goddess clock has been replaced by the fellow who commands the 8 suns and the moving box room and the screens with the people inside. Tell me about this person who controls all these things, a strange and terrible god. No. What does he look like? Come on. We know that he sounds like a Swedish chef. But, you know, he turns out to be a guy about 6'1" with a beard, some gray hairs. He's losing his hair on top. Just like, you know, half of the population of the world. Nobody's going to be really excited. When you come back to ancient Athens, the people are going to say, wow, a moving box that goes up and down? Wow, you're talking about a little box with people in it? Wow, you're talking about 8 little suns in the room that turn on and off? The water that goes down the toilet to wash the fecal matter away and stuff like that? They're all really interested, but who's the master of all of this stuff? Oh, a guy who's about 6'1", reddish beard, receding hairline, dresses up in Savannah slacks, love them, and a sweater and stuff like that, and Rockport shoes. Nobody cares about that part. Nobody's going to remember that part. They're going to look at you like you're nuts. Try to imagine an ancient Athenian going to this wonderful 4-story palace at the award-winning city of Knossos in the year 1600, and then making it back. Running water? What are you talking about? Indoor lighting? What are you talking about? 4 stories? Paintings? Food? Clothes? It's really weird. The only thing you can remember is it was really hard to find your way around. And when you try to say, oh yeah, there's a king there. He sits on a throne. He looks like our king. Your audience will look at you and say, you got to do better than that. Does that make sense, Heather? You're going to tell me all these stories about this fantastic place you went to. And it turns out to be ruled by this king. I know. There was a bull. All of a sudden, people's ears start to pick up. Yeah, there was a bull. It was a half human, half bull. He kind of snorted and said moo a lot when they introduced me. But no, nobody wants to hear about the friendly bull either, so he was eating human flesh. Oh, yeah, now I'm starting to get a response from, okay, it's ruled by a bull who eats human flesh. The person who commands the 8 suns and the people in the box and drinks the mystic brown fluid from the little white cup is not a balding, middle-aged college professor at all, but somebody who is half human and half bull and eats human flesh. That is more interesting. That's worth remembering. That's worth talking about. And by, the story of the Palace of Knossos expands until it's this maze hidden in the depths of time with a half man, half bull living on the inside. These Cretan stories are really hilarious. Daedalus, the fellow who built the Labyrinth, he also had a son named Icarus. I'll tell you this story too before we get back to the Theseus story. Daedalus eventually got to thinking that Crete was just too weird for him. I don't know where he got this idea. He decided that he was going to make himself a marvelous set of wings out of wax and feathers, and he was going to make a matching pair for his son Icarus. This myth is very, very old. He straps on his wings and he puts Icky's wings on, and he says the following to Icarus. Icarus, don't fly too high because your wings will melt in the sun. Do not fly too low because the sea spray and the wash from the surf will wet your wings down and make them heavy. Fly a middle course. How many of you got this talk from your parents when you were learning how to drive? Don't drive too fast, but don't drive too slow, especially in Springfield, Missouri, because you will get rear-ended. Okay, and with so much of what your parents tell you, right, when you're young, it goes in one ear and out the other. Daedalus and Icarus start flying away. What happens? Daedalus flies the middle course, not too high, not too low, but Icarus flies too high, as in that wonderful song by the group Kansas. Icarus born on wings of steel, his wings melt, they go, and that's the end of Icarus. Daedalus is very sad. Whoever can tell me what it said, what the one word was on Icarus's death certificate, shut up, for cause of death, can put their head down and sleep for the rest of the class period. Raise your hand if you know. Mona. That's 2 words. That's probably what he said as he was speaking. Artie Monthano! Yeah? Okay, you can put your head down and sleep anyway, Mona. That's fine. What was the cause of death on his death certificate? It was hubris. He flew too high. He thought he was a god. And on that little happy note, and meanwhile, back at Athens, Aegeus is waving goodbye to his son Theseus. Theseus and 13 other young, beautiful Athenians are sailing to Crete to become Minotaur chow. Theseus's chances of achieving this great thing are about 2, 3 out of 100, tops. On the other hand, we know that he will succeed because he's Theseus, darn it. They get off the boat in they walk down the gangplank into ancient Crete. You know, the Minotaur is already thinking, food. And this young woman named Ariadne, daughter of King Minos and Queen Pasiphae, sees burly, studly young Theseus walking off the boat and thinks to herself, woo-hoo, hot darn, I like him. Okay? As the song I Kissed the Bull plays in the background. She decides to help him. This part of the story we don't know very much about, but either she gives him a magic thread to find his way through the labyrinth, or she gives him a magic hat with a beacon that helps him find the way. Okay? I'm not that interested in that part. Theseus goes in, kills the Minotaur, comes back out and says, come on, gang, we're going back to Athens. They get on the boat. Ariadne's kind of tapping her foot. What about me? Oh yeah, you can come too. This too is a common theme. It's not like Theseus is like grateful or anything to this woman for helping him, or it's not like she's hard on the eyes or anything. Okay, yeah, you can get on the boat too. Next. They don't sail directly to Athens from the island of Crete. Athens is over here. The ancients like to island hop. They never liked, well, we have a map of Greece here. If we were sailing from the southern Peloponnesus, for example, to Attica, and we had a speedboat, we would go boom, take the straight line. It's the fastest way. But the ancient Greeks would sail all around the coast, never getting too far from the coastline because of Poseidon. Poseidon could waste them in the blink of an eye, and they never liked to get farther than swimming distance from a beach. And every night when they were done sailing, they would beach the ship and sleep on land, because Poseidon does not take long to get his act cranked up, and Poseidon can waste you in the blink of an eye. So one night, they decide to sleep on the island of Naxos. It's getting to be nightfall. The ship's ashore on the ground of this uncharted desert isle called Naxos. They beach the ship, and everybody gets off the boat and sleeps for the night. Early the next morning, just before dawn, it's maybe about 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning, Theseus is the first one up. He walks around to the fellow Athenians, the 7 beautiful Athenian women and the 6 beautiful Athenian men. Wake up, guys. Wake up. Don't wake up, Sleeping Beauty. And Theseus and his 13 fellow Athenians hop back on the boat. They tiptoe back onto the boat very quietly, and with muffled oars, row away, leaving Ariadne right there on the island. This is very typical heroic behavior. Quote-unquote heroic behavior in a hero legend. No sense of commitment whatsoever. They, that is to say Theseus and his compatriots, sail back to Athens. Meanwhile, it's now about 8:30, 8:35 in the morning. Ariadne stretches, oh, I slept late. Where is everybody? They're gone. That booger Theseus deserted me. Boo-hoo, what am I going to do? She's really sad. Because here, I mean, she only, saved this guy's life. She only allowed this guy, helped this guy to kill her stepbrother, the Minotaur, the late Minotaur. And this is the thing she gets. I know what you women are going to say in the audience. You're all like that. But fear not. Because as Ariadne is looking about anxiously, she's starting to cry because she thinks she's been ditched on this uncharted desert isle. There's this. It's the theme from When Doves Cry. This little purple guy comes out with purple on his head and a purple gown. Crowd of bacchantes following him. It's Dionysus. And he's looking for a wife. Hey, wow, you're cute, you'll do. Want to be immortal and be my wife? Well, I'm not doing anything else right now. So, Ariadne gets to be Mrs. Dionysus and live forever as a goddess, as the wife of the god of partying. It all turned out for the best. Or did it? Here's what happens next. Well, so we've written off Ariadne. She's happy. Theseus, meanwhile, is sailing back to Athens. Farrellyn, you have a question. His Aegeus, his dad, is waiting, looking over the parapet of his palace, overlooking the sea. When's my little boy coming home? On the horizon, he sees a sail, just the tip of a sail. And as the ship emerges, I'm doing a pretty good job, ain't I, Moosehead? He looks up, and what color's the sail? It's black. Darn, Theseus forgot to change the sail. And so, saddened, Aegeus pitches himself into the sea, which is thenceforward known as the Aegean Sea. I built in an etiology there. Jeremy. It's not much of an etiology, is it? Theseus jumps off the boat. Dad! Dad? Dad? Okay. That's the end. So Theseus gets to be the king. I'm not really that interested in Theseus's later career because it says here in my lecture notes, he goes on to fight the Amazons. Okay? That's where he meets Hippolyta. Well, meets her, hell, he probably carries her off. And the two of them, Theseus and Hippolyta, mingle in a sexual act and beget little Hippolytus. Mark.
How does Phaedra?
We're getting there.
Oh.
Because Hippolyta is a war prize, basically, the son Hippolytus is not really being groomed for the kingship. Later on, he marries Princess Phaedra of Crete, and they have kids who will grow up. They have sons who will grow up supposedly to be the kings. One of them is going to be the king of Athens. Phaedra is his second wife. I now pause for another question.
Yeah, actually I was going to ask, back on the Minotaur, I was kind of curious, most of your mythological creatures you see that are half man and half animal, they all have human heads. Why does the Minotaur have the head of a bull instead of a human head?
Because, for whatever reason, the Cretans were into bulls. I'm not kidding. That one of the things that the Cretans said, one of the things we've learned about the people of Crete, they don't leave us much in the way of a language that we can read about them in, but they have beautiful paintings. They seem to have had, Mitch and everybody else, a, God bless you, more of a Mother Earth type worshiping religion. They have a lead goddess who is always shown holding snakes in her hands, long flowing hair, and bare breasts. You know, that's the way women dressed up back then, apparently. I would have hated to live during that time. And the men are always very studly looking to, and one of the things that they did, we have lots of paintings of this, is the bull dance, where apparently a couple of kids, a young girl and a young boy, would dance on a moving bull. Kids, don't try this at home. And I just wish, Mitch, that we could, you know, I'm sure I'm not the only person who wishes, that, you know, we could figure out, what does this mean? The snake is a symbol of fertility, obviously. So is the bull. Bulls are very horny. Bulls do it all the time. For those of you who are not familiar with bulls and stuff like that. The Earth Mother Goddess always has a very well-developed chest. She always has long flowing hair. Looks like the generic Earth Mother type. This is obviously various fertility. These are various fertility-oriented things. Heck, sometimes Poseidon is a bull. You'll remember that when Hippolytus was about to have his terrible chariot accident, a wave came up, sent by Poseidon, and it looked like a bull. You got me. You got me, Mitch. Did I dance around that one pretty well? Thank you. Other questions? Maybe perhaps one I can actually answer. Regina.
I was wondering if it's important. I don't understand what the significance of sail means.
The black sail means woe, grief, sadness. The white sail that dummy Theseus was supposed to put up is white, pure, happy, happy, joy, joy. I'm back, Dad.
Is that part of the original agreement that on the way back?
Yes, it was. Yeah, I think I set that one up. It's just like you never see very many hot pink hearses or anything like that. They're usually black or navy blue. Okay. Another story that's told about Theseus, I think I told you this one already, is he went down to the underworld looking for hot babes. And he and his buddy Pirithous went down to the underworld looking for Persephone. They wanted to score with Persephone. This is going to be really cool. And Hades says, yes, gentlemen, sit right down. They sat down. They couldn't get up. I told you that one, right? And finally Hercules came and ripped them right up. Theseus is somewhat, he's a pretty good hero, but he's not really great. Let's splash up on the board the famous hierometer. What's number 1 on the hierometer? Anybody? Can anybody tell me what spot number 1 on the hierometer is? Okay, divine parentage. How about Theseus? Shh. Anybody but Farrellin. How about Theseus? Who's his dad? King Aegeus. Who's his mom? Aethra, a mortal woman. We've got a problem, don't we? No divine birth. So what do we do, Jeremy? Yeah, that's just great, Jeremy. Some Athenian you are, Jeremy. There we go. That's the right answer. Make something up. How about Poseidon? Poseidon's good. He's pretty... Huh?
Going all the way, you go for Zeus. That's already been stated.
There's always room for more, but it turns out to be Poseidon. There is a myth that Poseidon is Theseus's real father. The ramifications, if you will, escape me. But there are, pardon?
Tidal wave impregnated.
See what I have to put up with? Okay, fine. Write it up, guys. The point is that there is a parallel version in which Theseus's father is said to be the award-winning sea god Poseidon. And supposedly, while Theseus is sailing to Crete for his labor with the Minotaur, supposedly says, "Dad, would you please, Poseidon, if you really are my dad, would you please allow me to pick up this ring at the bottom of the ocean?" So he swims down the ocean, picks up the ring, says, "Ha, see, Poseidon really is my dad." It doesn't do it for me either. But it is a matter of civic pride for the Athenians to say that their hero, Theseus, was the child of Poseidon. Thingy number 2 on the hierometer. Okay, weird childhood. Or as I put it, fantastic events from childhood on. Here I would put the labors, the different labors that he underwent when he was journeying to Athens. He picked up the sword and the sandals. Wearing the sword and the sandals, he tried to make his way over to Athens. Faces opposition. Does he face opposition? Who's his opposition? Stepmother, Skyron. He's got lots of opposition. Does he overcome the opposition? Good. This is important because when Theseus' dad Aegeus is saying, "Well, time for me to go find 7 boys to give to the Minotaur," he doesn't want to send Theseus. But Theseus volunteers to go because he has to look for opposition. Aegeus says, "Theseus, don't be a hero, don't be a fool with your life." But Theseus does it anyway because he has to. Number 5 is what? Love interest. Yes. Helper. Does he have a helper? Ariadne. And in this case, the helper is kind of a love interest. She loves him, but he doesn't love her, but he uses her like the heel that he is, yada-da, yada-da. Labor or labors, that's number 7. Yeah, he's got those. He's either got the big one, you can say the big Minotaur labor, or the 6-pack of cheesy labors.
So how do you kill the Minotaur? Did you make him strangle him, shoot him, eat his own flesh or something? Had his dad fight him or something?
No, I have it on good authority that he sang Barry Manilow's songs to the Minotaur until the Minotaur committed suicide. Jeez. Okay, I pause for your questions about the award-winning hierometer. Matt? Mike? Stan?
It's not about the hierometer, but I was curious if, I doubt, since you said most of these things come from Athens, I doubt that you'd have these prime examples, but is it likely that there was, say, legends from Sparta that, say, Theseus went over and got killed by the Minotaur and then the Spartan hero had to save him or something like that?
No. Because the paucity, we just have so very little of other stuff from other Greek cities. The Spartans, who you name, are probably, yeah, I know. The Thebans, now if the Thebans had written all the Greek literature, that would have been a trip. Thebes is a city. I'm digressing, I understand, but I have time to digress. By the way, you're not getting your quiz today. You have a quiz on Monday. Is that okay? Which of you guys wrote me? Okay, did you get my email back? See, when you send me email, I send you email back. You can email me at jjh117f@nic.smsu.edu. That's my email address. Focus in on that so that all of the students who will be watching this can, send me email and tell me how much they enjoy the class. Thebes was a city that the ancient Greeks loved to hate, that the ancient Athenians loved to hate. Everything bad happens at Thebes. You think that Crete is messed up? Well, it is, but Thebes is way more messed up. You want to talk about a guy who married his mom? We got that. Killed his dad? Yup, got that too. They found a religion there that tears people to bits. Yep, we got that. The founding king and his wife turned into snakes. Well, that's not so bad. Not that there's anything wrong with being a snakehead. But, I mean, they finished their career after they retired as king and queen. They became snakes. We got it at Thebes. Niobe was the queen of Thebes. I mean, everything bad happens at Thebes, primarily because they were right next door to ancient Athens. And in response to your question, Mark, it would be very interesting indeed to see how a Theban would write the legends of Theseus.
Who wrote the one about where he went down to the underworld?
That I don't know.
That would be hard to believe that was in the
I'm going to look it up, though, Mitch. I'm going to look it up. You called me, and you asked me a question that I can't even make up an answer to. I hate you. Okay, Ray.
Is Niobe, is she the most ancient reference for a queen of Thebes, or is there someone?
There's Harmonia,
Harmonia?
daughter of Ares. Okay, other questions that perhaps I can answer.
Number 8 on the barometer, would that have been his journey down to the underworld?
No, because that was when he was young. He just died, Mitch. That's how he confronted death. He died. Not all heroes, have the glorious grand finale that Heracles did. It's a good point. Thanks for leading me back on track. I like you again, Mitch. The ancient Greeks, especially the ancient Athenians, really did believe that Theseus existed. Even Aristotle, the great philosopher who lived in the 4th century BC, a very learned man, who was probably the last man to possess all the knowledge his civilization had at a given time. That is to say, if it was known back then, Aristotle knew it and wrote about it. Aristotle believed, and Aristotle did not really believe in the ancient Greek gods and goddesses. He really did not believe that chaos spooked out Gaia and Tartarus, and he didn't believe that. He didn't really believe in Zeus in his heart. He would talk about, Zeus, he's cool. He believed in Theseus. He believed that Theseus was an ancient Athenian king who ruled around the 9th century BC, God bless you, Erica, and as reputation of his fame became greater, as the Athenians' need for a heroic figure in their national Weltanschauung became greater, he became that hero. Supposedly, Theseus was the king who united all of the cities of Attica into a federation of Athens. That is to say, he was the founder of the Athenian city-state. Theseus was, in effect, and you can write this down. You're welcome. The Athenian version of George Washington. That is to say, we are taught to revere George Washington for being the founder of our nation. He was a really good person, Lots of stories are made up about what a great person George Washington is. When he chopped down the cherry tree and his dad, was about to go upside his head, said, "George, did you chop down the cherry tree?" What did George reply? "I cannot tell a lie. I did it." Okay, that sort of thing. You can see where that never happened. It never happened. He never pitched a coin across the Potomac either. Never happened. But these are the stories that grow... I'm sorry, Mark. These are the sort of stories that grow up around an important national figure. It would be interesting to see what, what little kids would tell us about George Washington. Or Abraham Lincoln, kind and good. He was loved by many. To help us remember this president. You know that song? We put his face on the penny. Abe Lincoln walked 52 miles of barbed wire to bring, he shortchanged a guy by 3 cents. Abraham Lincoln freed all the slaves. He did not. When he signed the Declaration of Independence, the Emancipation Proclamation, old Abe freed all the slaves in the Confederacy. That was mighty great of him, wasn't it? He didn't free a single slave in the Union. But that's not the way it gets remembered now. Abe Lincoln was kind of a dictator. He suspended the writ of habeas corpus. I don't like Mark's wise guy questions. I'm going to throw him in jail. I'm not going to tell him what he's going to charge with, and I'm going to keep him there forever. That's what the writ of habeas corpus keeps me from doing. And Abe Lincoln suspended it. He was a real jerk. But Mitch or Jeremy or whoever asked me this question, the idea is that Theseus's reward was death, but he also has the great fame of being someone, a sort of George Washington / Abe Lincoln figure, King Arthur figure in his city's history, whose stories just get better and better as they're retold. Whew. Any other questions? Perhaps a question I can answer. Okay.